So just to identify everyone, so we've got myself, who's the main facilitator, then we've got Luke from Corf, if you give us a wave, Luke. And we've got our extra facilitators, Dave and Doug, if you give us a wave. Brilliant, super. And then Heidi and Dean from our media team will be poised to promote Planet Purbeck and just let us know how everyone can stay in touch with us. So moving on to the Zoom etiquette. So please mute if you're not talking. Please be present as well. I know it's been long in lockdown. We've all been pretty zoomed out, and it's quite tempting to have lots of different tabs on and answer emails and answer your phone. But please be present, because we've got some phenomenal speakers, some of which we might never see again. So yeah, just enjoy. I don't know why I say never see again, but hopefully we'll see them lots. I know Jeremy Sampson, our headline speaker, he's actually coming down to visit Purbeck in April. So look forward to seeing you in person. There won't be any hand signals tonight, just because there's so many of us. So please just pop your questions into the chat. What we do encourage you to do, though, if you do like what people are saying, then do show them your appreciation. It can be quite a lonely feeling there, talking to a blank screen without getting any feedback. So if you like what people say, do give them the global Zoom appreciation, which is this, the jazz hands. I'd like you all to warm up and just give us a bit of this, please. Brilliant, excellent, yeah. Shake it off. I know your hands are all tired from all that keyboard action, super. When it comes to putting questions in the chat, if you can put a question mark before introducing your question, that'd be super. It just helps us identify them. Also, when the speakers are talking, please keep your questions relevant to what they're talking about, because we want the questions to focus attention on what the speakers are talking about and not to detract or distract from them. So please don't have a conversation about the weather while the speakers are talking. That'd be great. And then please keep your questions nice and concise. Speakers, I'll be keeping time, and when you've got 1 minute left, I'm just going to do this little bell here. Same goes for the people that are asking questions. So what will happen is you'll pop a question into the chat. Myself and the facilitators will pick the best ones, and then we'll ask you to introduce your question. What else? So just before we start, I'm just going to talk about the culture that we have at Planet Purbeck, what we're creating and what people are finding so appealing. So at Planet Purbeck, we want to create a culture where the wisdom of the whole group is valued, where everyone will have an opportunity to express their views. And to preserve this culture, I will need to politely interject at times to ensure we hear from a diversity of voices. We want to create a collaborative atmosphere where we are focused on solutions to problems and how we can find common ground. When we do challenge each other, we do it respectfully and to encourage each other to do better. The climate and ecological emergency is the biggest challenge of this moment in human history and our lifetime. Everyone here is here tonight because they care about their family and community and want to do something about this great challenge. We all know deep down that we are stronger together. So let's do this. Right, Dave, over to you. Dave was one of the founding members of Planet Purbeck, and he's just going to give a little talk about Planet Purbeck's mission. Dave.
Right, yes, well, Planet Purbeck is an umbrella organisation made up of individuals, groups and organisations. And what unites us is we recognise that the climate emergency and the loss of biodiversity jeopardises the very things that all of us hold dear. We also recognise that our combined skills, knowledge, passion and experience together makes us far more effective than we are as individuals or even individual groups. And we aim to coordinate our actions so that we not only preserve the wonderful natural environment and wonderful communities of Purbeck, We want to regenerate them. We want to enhance them. So what do? Well, we campaign for causes which reflect our core values. We seek to take actions and promote activities that help combat climate change. And we seek to take part in projects to enable us to improve our local environment, our natural environment. And we're looking to build resilience in our communities so that we can withstand the worst effects of climate change that are coming our way. We owe it to everyone in our community, not just now, but our future generations. We want to be good stewards of this earth and leave this planet in a better state than it is at the moment. And we encourage you, if this sounds attractive, take a look at our website, come and join us. It doesn't matter how little time you've got, what skills you may think you don't have, we can use any help whatsoever. So remember, we're stronger together. Thank you.
Well said, Dave. Let's give him some appreciation. Super, thank you. So the format of the night, we're going to start with big picture speakers, Jeremy Sampson, Heidi Florence and Peter Johnson, and then we'll have a short Q&A of 5 minutes. Then we'll move on to more practical tourism, where we'll have Kaiser Crawford, Colvin Milner, Colin Morgan and Josie Parish. Another 5 minutes Q&A. Then we're going to move on to land use and tourism with Tom Clark, Peter Robertson, Alistair Tuckey, and a short Q&A. And then we're going to round up with our headline act, which is Mike Bonfield and Chris Toms, to sum everything up and give us a plan for the future. After that, we'll have another short Q&A, and then we're going to have some short pitches from the Planet Purbeck coordinators, who will tell you about how you can get involved in Planet Purbeck. Then we'll have a short discussion about what next. Then it's goodbye from the main meeting, and then our famous virtual pub or cafe is opened. And that's often where the best ideas and conversations happen, just like the meeting, just like the pub after the meeting or the conference bar at a conference. So do stick on for that if you can. That will start at 8:35. Okay, Jeremy, welcome, and over to you if you'd like to kind of introduce yourself.
Great, thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be here. I am based in Bristol. I work for an organization. I'm the CEO of a nonprofit called the Travel Foundation. We are a charity, a nonprofit organization that is based here in the UK, but we work globally with tourism destinations and companies all over the world with a mission to help ensure that tourism benefits communities and our environment. And we are focused on providing training, advocacy, innovation, research and development, all sorts of tools and good practices in order to enable that to happen. So as I said, I'm based in Bristol, but I am planning, assuming that I'm allowed out of my neighborhood by mid-April, I am planning a visit down there. So hopefully I'll get to see some of you, and I'm bringing my family down there for the week. So really looking forward to get to know your little part of the world. So I'm going to share a presentation with you all. Just one moment. I get some jazz hands if you can see it.
Yeah, we can see it, Jeremy.
Great. So, awesome, excellent. So, around the world, we've been hearing this phrase a whole lot, build back better. Certainly in the tourism sector where I work, it is the phrase of the year. The entire industry is having this conversation pretty much since last March, when things imploded across all of travel and tourism globally, about what it may mean for the future of this industry and where travel will go from here, and how do we build back better. But I have some issues with this phrase because I find it to be more or less an empty platitude unless we really think about what better means and think about defining what success looks like for the industry at large and for our communities when it comes to tourism coming back. So I want to explore that concept a little bit with you guys. Last June, my organization, the Travel Foundation, got together with several other NGOs working in travel and tourism and created what we felt was our contribution to this conversation about what building back better actually looks like. So we created a framework called the Future of Tourism Coalition. We wrote a set of 13 guiding principles for tourism recovery and beyond, with a focus on putting destinations and community needs at the center of tourism development going forward. We started this coalition as a small group, and since we launched, we have now more than 500 signatories that have joined our coalition, representing destinations, big and small, large companies, small companies, associations, academia, small nonprofits. It's a large multi-sectoral global collaboration of organizations who believe in this vision. We're really focused on reframing what success looks like in the tourism industry, an industry that for years has reported its success based on growth, on year-on-year arrivals, on economic contribution to the local community, to GDP, on how much people are spending. But we think we need to look at things a whole lot more holistically if we're going to have a different future for the tourism sector and if we're going to really build back better. And by the way, I should say we are also partnering with another sister initiative called Tourism Declares a Climate Emergency, which is an initiative of about 250 now destinations and companies which have declared a climate emergency and are creating action plans to help the tourism sector be more transparent and address their responsibility towards towards climate action going forward. So in this conversation about Build Back Better, about reframing success, I'm finding that many communities are starting to ask themselves this question. And it's a really simple question, but I think it's kind of a profound one. And that's the question that you see here. Why do we want tourism? I think in many places for many years, the answer has been because we want tourism for tourism's sake. We want to have, we want to have visitors here. We think it's good for the economy. And we've developed tourism because we think it is it makes sense as an end goal. But I want to challenge everyone to start thinking about whether tourism could really be reframed as a means to an end rather than as the end result itself. In order to get there, there's some things that we need to understand better about tourism. A couple of years ago, my organization, alongside Cornell University and Eplerwood International, launched a research report called Destinations at Risk, the Invisible Burden of Tourism, which calls for a more holistic accounting of the costs and benefits of tourism in communities, pointing out that in many places, we don't actually know what tourism costs at the community level. So we know that people come every year. Usually there's a peak season, but we've never really done a full accounting to understand, well, what does that cost the community in terms of infrastructure, in terms of waste management, in terms of energy, energy and water use, in terms of social capital, in terms of housing. And ultimately, if we don't understand well enough the holistic accounting measures of tourism, can we understand whether or not tourism pays for itself? We also point out in this report that in many destinations, the costs of tourism are often left unaccounted for or are left to be covered by taxpayers. When costs are left unaccounted for, this is where you end up with degradation of resources or conflict with local communities. And many of us are seeing that in our own communities throughout this pandemic. Local parks that are full of trash, for example. And this is an example of the invisible burden in a microcosm, where you have people coming and visiting a place, but the resources are stretched and there hasn't been enough planning for the cost of maintaining those spaces. Another paradigm I'd like to challenge is this idea of quality over quantity. So many destinations have been thinking about, as a result of the problems of the last years, we all know about over-tourism. A year and a half ago, you couldn't pick up a paper without reading about that. And many destinations, because of the pandemic, are actually busier than ever before. So it's interesting, many destinations are now making this pivot and saying we'd rather have quality tourism rather than quantity of tourism, and we'd like to maximize the benefits. Well, that makes sense. That seems like a really good idea. The question is, what does quality actually mean, and how do we define value? So another research that we did recently in Tenerife was really interesting, where we actually did a cost-benefit analysis of different market segments. Many destinations have made the assumption that what they're looking for are visitors who spend more money, because that means that perhaps that, you know, more money is going to flow into the community, and people are going to have jobs and maximize the benefits. But if you think about the invisible burden framework, one of the things we found is that in many cases, the biggest spending tourists are also the ones that cost the community the most when it comes to environmental impact and maintenance of infrastructure, et cetera. So it just really begs the question, what does value mean, and how do we best understand the cost and benefits of different market segments in order to plan the proper investment and promotion, and understand the behaviors of visitors so that the right priorities around destination management mechanisms can be implemented. I want to suggest, back to this question that I posed at the very beginning, why do we want tourism? To me, this means that we really need new indicators of success that put the community's needs at the center. And I think this creates a new mandate for destination management that's really good for local governance and for local collaboration, because it creates an agreement. It can also be really good for business. So when you think about tourism as a means to an end, you could start to think about performance indicators like, is tourism helping us to protect our resources and biodiversity? Are local livelihoods genuinely being optimized? Is money really staying here? And is it ultimately worth it? Is tourism creating a better quality of life for people who live here? And that's a novel concept in some cases, that you would have destinations really thinking about residents alongside their visitors, but these are places that we obviously share. And ultimately, I think this can also lead to better product. So destinations are also thinking about how to respond to the emerging market trends. We're hearing that people are going to be looking for more local, more nature, more genuine experiences, and that's a great thing. I mean, I think that for a community like yours, there's a lot of opportunity there. But again, unless that growth is managed, and unless we really understand the implications of that growth, I think it's something to certainly be cautious about. But if we can maximize this process of having different performance indicators alongside those economic ones, perhaps we'll be able to start to answer that question. I was asked to provide a little bit of inspiration on some places that are doing well around the concept of ecotourism. So I'm just going to mention two examples before I close. One of them in the UK, I just recommend, which is obviously quite nearby, visit Gloucestershire. They're doing quite innovative stuff. If you have a look at their website, they're rolling out a whole new strategy. They're investing quite a bit in food and drink as a way to maximize the local tourist economy. And they've become the first UK destination to declare a climate emergency, and are working on a climate action plan across public and private sector to address the impact of tourism and reduce GHG emissions according to the science. And the second one is a collective called MEET, the Mediterranean Experience of Ecotourism. I actually used to work there when I was based in Malaga a couple of years ago. This is a collection of protected areas, now a portfolio somewhere close to 40 parks, I believe, across the Mediterranean region, Southern Europe and Northern Africa, who have designed basically a co-management process, putting the community, local businesses and the conservation folks, the protected area managers, together to design new products and experiences that can be ultimately sold to the market, meet the sort of level of quality that the market expects, but also make sure that they don't cross the red lines that the conservation sector have installed, to make sure that ultimately the focus is on tourism driving conservation and creating a means to an end. So thanks very much for the opportunity, and would love to sit and chat with you here all night, but I have only a limited amount of time. So hope this was useful and inspirational, and look forward to hopefully seeing some of you all in a month's time. Thanks that's really good. I really like that.
It was like
just get blank faces, so it's really
yeah. Thank you so much for dropping in to give us that talk. Really interesting. So many great questions, new indicators of success, and is tourism creating a better quality of life for the community? Great questions and lots of good evidence. Thank you. So if you just start popping your questions into the chat, just to clarify, you can put questions into the chat while the speaker is talking, and what we'll do is we'll identify the best ones, and then once our first 3 speakers have finished, then we'll move into a Q&A. So now we're going to move on to Heidi Florence.
Okay, I'm just going to share my screen, 1 second. Yes.
And like I say, you can put your questions into the chat as the speakers are talking, as long as they're relevant. Thank you. Great questions coming in.
Okay, cool. So my name's Heidi. I'm founder of a brand new business impact consultancy called Fair Enough. And to date, I've spent my career working in marketing and advertising. So I've got experience in how to influence behaviour change. In this instance, I've applied those methods and theories to the example of trying to encourage less littering amongst our visitors. So we already know we're going to have a busy season ahead of us, and we've got a really big challenge on our hands. We've got to communicate with a vast spectrum of visitors from all sorts of backgrounds, all with different ingrained habits and social norms. So we have to manage our expectations and be realistic about how much littering behaviour we can expect to influence when someone just has a short visit and time in this area. We have to make it as easy as possible for people to do the right thing, and I'm going to explain why the best chance we have of limiting litter this year is going to be through making infrastructure improvements to guide people in the direction of the positive behaviours we want to see. So first of all, we have to make some sweeping stereotypes and assume we just have 2 different types of audience. So we're going to have a small number of people who are already environmentally engaged. They care about the environment and the wider community, and the idea of littering is going to be a direct threat to their values. But for everyone else, we have to assume their immediate personal benefit comes above the benefit of the wider community. They're going to have really low motivation to do anything we ask them at all, and we have to assume they're driven by convenience and speed. And one of the most important factors here that relates very directly to littering is how much this other group are going to be led by their existing habits and want to follow social norms. And when it comes to the social norm of littering, really sadly, litter is a magnet for more litter. And there's tons of scientific research and social experiments that have been done over the years. I'll put some links in the chat actually after some of the studies I've read, if anyone's interested, that prove this. The presence of litter sends an environmental cue to our brains about the cleanliness of the place that we're in, and it establishes what the social norms are around littering and whether that's socially acceptable. And so even if we put social norms to one side for a moment, you'll often see that there's unmistakably clear signs that say, don't litter, and then you turn around and you can't believe it, there's a bunch of litter on the floor. And I just don't understand why people can't follow a simple instruction. Well, the reason that happens is because it's really easy for us to communicate directly with people who already think like us. So when our environmentally friendly audience see signs like this, they're already on board with it, they're going to respond positively. But for our other audience, there's something a bit more complicated going on in their minds. So we're going to put ourselves in the shoes of an average family who is here on holiday. They're having a great day at the beach. They've got lots of things. The thing they didn't bring with them, though, was their lunch. So they're on holiday, they're going to treat themselves. They've had a nice big takeaway lunch, had a great day. They're packing up now to go home, get to the bin, and it's full. And there's a sign saying, take your rubbish home. So at this point, their brains are trying to perceive the amount of effort required to follow this instruction. And all of our brains are wired for shortcuts. We're always looking ways to try and reduce effort. And this means when our brain decides to carry out a task, it considers how difficult it thinks it's going to be and whether there's any benefits. So back to our family, they're considering whether they can carry all this unexpected rubbish with them home. It's going to be a long walk back to their accommodation. It's up a hill. It's hot. They could carry this to the next bin, but that might be full too. So at this point, there's just too much perceived effort and lack of reward around the unknown outcome of taking their litter home. And, let's give them a break. They might be used to putting their rubbish in the bin. At this point, by asking them to take it home, we're trying to break an ingrained habit where they would normally put their litter in the bin. So the last point here is that pain and friction occurs in our brains at the point that we're making decisions. So normally you try and use friction to slow down the behaviour you want to see less of. But in this instance, when we're asking people to take their rubbish home if the bin is full, we're actually putting a barrier and friction in front of the positive action we want them to take. This is having the opposite effect. So what are the solutions? Well, most importantly, we've got to have the right infrastructure in place to help guide people towards making the right decisions and the behaviours we want to see. And I think this year that is really going to mean that we need to put more bins in high litter places or have more frequent emptying, because we know the presence of litter is going to attract more litter. It sends the social norm that that's the okay thing to do. And then secondly, why don't we stop creating so much litter in the first place? It isn't just a consumer problem. This is where I hope more local businesses will get involved, maybe working with Sustainable Swanage this year, as we need more businesses to take accountability for the waste that they create. Some ways that businesses could achieve this is by setting up deposit return schemes or encouraging reusables. I know Josie's going to give us a really nice example of how she's managing this at Joe's Cafe later on. And rewards are really important when we're trying to change behaviour. We've got to make it clear what the benefits are. It also has to be easy for people to do the right thing. Unfortunately, taking your rubbish home isn't going to be straightforward for everybody as that seems. So this is why we have to circle back to that point that having the right infrastructure in place to guide them towards the behaviour of putting it in a bin is possible and important. We need to also make it the social norm to do the right thing when we're communicating with people about behaviour change. We need to reinforce it with a statistic, for example, about how many people are already doing that behaviour, show them it's the normal thing to do. And volunteer litter picking teams can really help this situation. As local residents, we can support the council when it's an unprecedented busy time like this by keeping our neighbourhood clean. And I know the initial reaction from some people might be that if you have volunteers picking up litter, surely that's just going to encourage people to drop more. But peer example really can influence people to not drop litter when they see other people like them picking it up. Volunteer litter picking teams can also operate strategically by planning a clean just after lunch, for example, as that would be a time where there's high risk of more litter being dropped. And we know that if we can try and quickly remove litter, experiments have proven that litter attracts litter. So you're trying to remove some of that and therefore not attracting as much. And at this point, we're just wanting to give props here to Litter Free Purbeck and Dave Swanage Beach Buddies, who are already doing a great example of this in the Purbecks. And then lastly, just remember that behaviour change takes time. We have to start seeding our behaviour change message well in advance of the moment that someone's going to find themselves carrying a piece of rubbish that they no longer want to.
Awesome, thanks Heidi. That was brilliant. I can't believe I was so gripped about rubbish there. But yeah, it was a really good presentation. I love the way you've logically gone through the solutions. Thank you. Okay, so
I'll hand over to Pete now. We'll just swap places.
quick changeover. Yeah, but do take time to introduce yourself, Pete.
I will. Musical chairs. Hello, everyone. I'm Pete. I'm a managing director of a company called Creature Media. We are a purposeful content agency specialising in behaviour change, and we're also publishers of National Geographic Kids magazine, which you can probably see just behind me Just kind of following on from what Heidi was talking about, really, I'm going to talk about how we can create positive environmental change within our visitors and when best to get that message across. So I think we all agree that we need to try and encourage tourists to act more environmentally friendly whilst they're here. But why should they care? Well, my kind of view is that people don't come here to wonder at the architectural beauty of the Mowlem or gaze longingly at King George's car park. You know, the vast majority of people visit because it's beautiful. So our most compelling argument is that we want it to stay beautiful for them and for us. Why should we try and change their behavior? When should we try and change their behavior? So we know why we think they'd be receptive to our message, but when should we be communicating that message to them? To Heidi's point, we need to see this messaging early on to make as much impact as possible, far before they even arrive in Purbeck. And people are most receptive to change when they are emotionally engaged in an topic. And the excitement for an upcoming holiday is the perfect emotion we need to get across an environmental message. And people are most excited just after they've booked. So using their booking confirmation emails, guest manuals, and activity guides are a great touch point to convey our messages. So we know when we are going to communicate with them, but what do we say? So communicating environmental messaging is tough and often done incorrectly, focusing on the issues rather than solutions. And when we only talk about issues, only about 30% of people engage with that content. But if we talk about the issues and the solutions together, a much higher percentage of people, roughly about 70%, will engage with your messaging. And as an example, in the context of Swanage, you could say something like, in Swanage, we collect over 100 tons of rubbish a day. During the summer season, we provide over 500 bins that get emptied every day, and we also have an army of volunteers who help us keep our town tidy. However, sometimes that's just too much for us to handle. So if you see a bin that's full, please be prepared to take your rubbish home. This will help us keep our town beautiful and a lovely place for you to enjoy. This example kind of talks about the issues that the community face, the solutions we have in place, and how they can play an active role in helping, whilst giving them a kind of reason to do it, basically. So we know why they'd be receptive. We know when we should communicate with them and what we think we should say, but how do we frame it? So my personal view on this is that we should get visitors to agree to a pledge. Pledges have been used a lot within environmental movements, with Nat Geo, Iceland, and others asking their audience for commitment on specific topics. You agree to a set of points that you will abide by and give your name to your commitment. They work really, really well if done correctly, and especially if the person signing can see all of the other people who have agreed to act in a specific way. So if that person can also share that socially, that they've signed it, this goes further to reinforcing their pledge, as they are committing to their peers as well as those who have set up the pledge. So in summary, a very whistle-stop tour about how we can kind of create behaviour change within our tourists. But I think, you know, working with the accommodation providers to be able to allow us to use that perfect optimum point to be able to communicate our messages, and linking through to a pledge would be a really good way of starting that kind of behavioural change journey for those tourists. And that is me.
Thank you, Pete. Excellent.
All right.
Let's show our appreciation. Beautiful images too. I really love the way you walked us through a positive story, mentioning about all the good things that Swanage can do, like volumes of rubbish collected and disposed of, and the stats around engagement. You know, 70% of people engage far more if we talk about the solutions. And I think we're all guilty of, you know, droning on about issues rather than solutions. That was excellent. I love the idea of the pledges too. I mean, that's, yeah, it's about changing social norms. Super. So we've got time now for 5 minutes of questions for our speakers. Facilitator, I've had so many messages coming in. Can one facilitator just step forward and suggest a question? Because I can't keep up with all of the questions. Any facilitator, would you like to pick one and say who it's from?
I don't have who it's from, I'm afraid, but this is for Jeremy. Have you seen tourism act as a catalyst for change, infrastructure and services?
Jeremy? Maybe he's gone.
Perhaps he has. I'll just have a quick look for him.
Okay. Let's have a look. We had some other questions there. Let me have a look. Any other facilitators? Do you want to jump in with any questions you've seen?
This is picking up on a question which was put to Heidi, but I'm going to jump in because I'm also the Swanage Beach Buddies coordinator. And the question was, should we encourage volunteer litter pickers to engage with the public? And for your information, we do engage with the public. And one of the most noticeable things this year has been the number of conversations we've had with the public while we've been picking up litter. And the great majority, almost without doubt, have been really positive, talking not just about the volunteer effort, but generally how tidy Swanage has been. And so we do engage, and we encourage all our volunteers to engage with the public.
Great to hear. Thank you, Dave. Let's give a round of applause to Dave and his team for picking up all the rubbish and keeping our beaches clean. Super. Hester Viney, would you like to ask your question around the pledges?
Hello. Yeah, I was just picking up. I'm part of the campaigns team with Planet Purbeck, and just think that this is something that we should action. Pete, it's a great idea. And do you think that Airbnb, probably as one of the biggest booking agents, would be receptive to a pledge?
In my experience with Airbnb, having been a host and also, you know, booking as well, I think it would be quite a challenge to do it on a localized level or even on a national level. However, engaging those specific hosts within our area is actually relatively easy for us to do, because we know they're all there. We can message them directly, and all we want to ask is for them to add that link into, you know, the point where they communicate with their guests after they've booked. So relatively simple thing to do. I think as well, you know, speaking to all of the hotels and campsites, everyone has some sort of email confirmation. So there is always that initial touch point with that customer that we can engage them on. So yeah.
Brilliant. I'm excited. Thank you.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks, Hester. Julia Gulbanu, you had a good idea around recycling. Julia?
Yes, hello. I was just wondering whether doing something universal across Purbeck, so with the bins that the public are using, and being able to have something that has, you know, recycling, but also a bit of an engagement aspect and educational aspect. And the idea of it being universal across Purbeck at all the different places is so that, you know, people tend to go from one place to the other, and there's an immediate understanding of, okay, red means food waste, green means bottles, whatever, simple, clear. But it's also something that means that, you know, individual organisations don't have to scratch their heads and keep recreating the wheel every single time. One great thing can be created that fits everybody, works for everybody, and then can be used fully. I don't know, do you think that's something that would work? That was for Heidi.
Okay, thank you. Heidi?
I think that speaks very much directly to forming habits and creating habits, and then making it recognizable. If people are used to doing something and recognizing bins and knowing what to put in them, and they see that all over the area, it's going to be much easier to enforce that as a habit that they continue to do. So I think that's a great idea.
I think adding to that as well, a lot of people want to recycle, and the bins that we have don't necessarily say whether that's available or not. And a lot of people at that point would just generally be like, okay, well, what do I do with it? I feel guilty about putting it in this bin now because I don't know whether it's sorted afterwards. So yeah, to your point, absolutely. I think, you know, having that is a really valuable thing.
So thank you. I didn't realise myself and everyone would be so interested in litter, but it is such a crucial bugbear for everyone, isn't it? And it's great to see so many people engaging in it positively. Got one more question, Dan from Forward Venture, regarding the no bin system in National Trust. Dan from Forward Venture.
Hi, I work on the beach at Middle Beach, Studland. We often had quite a big litter problem, and we turn up in the morning to work and have to pick up loads of rubbish, which is, you know, so you just build into your working day. The Rangers trialled removing the bins off the sand, and it worked fantastically. So bins were left in the car park and people were educated by the Rangers, and it worked fabulously. And there's definitely less litter on the beach at Middle Beach during the height of the summers. You know, a real success, I would say. So, you know, well done to the NT on that one.
Thank you, Dan. We've got a chance for any of the speakers just to come back on that one. It's a really interesting one. I don't think personally removing bins from Swanage would mean that we'd have less litter, but yeah, anyone want to come back on that?
Yeah, I think that the challenge in Swanage would be that you're in much more of an urban environment and there's so many more points for litter to be created. I think there's less opportunity perhaps to buy a lot of that convenience and takeaway food in Studland, but with Swanage it's so much easier. So no bins probably wouldn't be a workable solution for that scenario.
But I think it is that litter creates more litter. And when you're in Studland Beach, you know, and you're leaving at the end of the day and the bin is full, you leave it next to the, you know, people leave it next to the bin, which then the seagulls get into, and it creates, you know, much more waste. So taking them off the beach in that respect is kind of almost not a bad idea. So, well, it worked. So, yeah.
Brilliant, super. And I'm aware that Mike Bonfield and Clive Colvin are, you know, right at the centre of this and experience this every day. So you will get a chance to talk about this. So I know you'll be very informed and passionate about that. Right, we're going to move on. Thank you so much for the questions and for the speakers. We're now going to move on to the kind of practical tourism element. And I'm going to call in the owner of Burminstern Farm, Keisha. Keisha, sorry.
That's okay.
Keisha.
Hello.
You put it in brackets for me, thank you. Yeah, welcome. If you'd just like to introduce yourself and tell us how amazing your farm is.
Right, well, hello everyone. I'm so very grateful for being invited to come and speak to you all, since I'm so far away from Purbeck and your part of the world. But it's quite fascinating because tourism and holidays is something that kind of binds us all together. It's something we all either we want to do, or we possibly have issues with other people doing, or we have guests ourselves. So yeah, I'm really grateful. I live in Burminstern. It's a farm, old farm. We have just under 3 hectares, so it's not a huge amount of land. We came here about 7 years ago. And I'm going to show you some photos in a moment to describe what it is. But one of the things I wanted to discuss with you today, because I think it's actually so related to the question you're just talking about in terms of litter and waste. Waste is one of my massive bugbears here as well. Is what does luxury mean to you? So what I'm going to do is I am going to share my screen with a whiteboard. Okay, and then if you look at the top of your screen, you'll see that there's a thing that says view options. And if you click on that and then click on annotate, you can actually write on this whiteboard. Okay, and I want you to write what luxury means to you, or what, so you can write what luxury means to you and what luxury means to others. Okay, is anyone, are you able to, can you see where the bits are? Oh, brilliant. I've got Doug Skinner and Helen Fitch making some comments. So it automatically puts it on a drawer. So if you switch that to text at the top, if you switch it to text, then you'll be able to write. And please do draw pictures. I mean, they're lovely. If there are any artists among you. So the reason that this question came to me was I was really lucky that for a work job, I had to go to Sri Lanka 2 years ago. And I stayed in this amazing 5-star hotel in Colombo because it was work. It's not a place I would have ever been able to afford myself. And I walked in the doors and it's owned by this very rich Indian family. And it was called, I think, the Taj Mahal. And, you know, these marble floors, and walked into my room, which is just a basic room, but it was just, you know, phenomenal. All this stuff and these pillows and this towels and yeah, just so much stuff. And for 10 minutes, I was like, oh, this is fabulous. And then I started getting a bit twitchy because I thought, where's the plastic going that's wrapping all of this stuff? And why can't I open my window? And then I started to think about, okay, well, actually, you know, it's really nice that there's bottled water here because I'm not 100% sure about drinking the water out of the taps. And actually, it's quite nice that I can't open the window because the mosquitoes have got diseases and I'm a bit worried about that. And it really made me think about what luxury is here at Burminstern, because one of the things we have is we have windows that open because it is so quiet. It is so quiet here. And for so many people, like when I was lying in that room in Colombo, even with these like prison type windows, the traffic and the noise was phenomenal. It was absolutely amazing. And when I open the tap here, I can drink the water. It comes from our own well, which is, you know, tested by the council and all of that kind of stuff. And also if I open the window, I can hear curlews now. And later on in the year, I can hear owlets. And what else can we hear? I'm just looking out my window now and I can see the moon, and actually the stars are phenomenal. And all of a sudden, these things that are, for some people, this is just life. And for me, I'm so lucky that it's life. For others, it's a real luxury. And there are things that people go to see in your part of the world, and it is a luxury just being able to have the sand between your toes, being able to enjoy a sunset on the beach, hear the sound of the sea. And I actually think that those are the things people are starting to value a huge amount more. Okay, thank you so much for all of those suggestions. I'll make sure Rob gets a copy of them because I'm just going to share, I'm going to stop sharing this one. If I can work out how to do that. Save this thing, great. Okay, so let's stop sharing that one and let's share this one. PowerPoint. Right, okay. Can you see that? Or can you see my notes? Which one can you see? Can you see the big screen? Yeah? Great, okay. So this is just a collection of the photos to welcome you to Burminstern. We're just north of Perth and we're only 10 miles away from the city of Perth and an hour away from Edinburgh, but actually it's a bit like being in the middle of nowhere. We converted these old agricultural buildings that hadn't been used for probably about 40 years into this steading. And a steading is a Scottish term for an agricultural building that has 3 sides. And this is the picture on the right of the steading in the summertime. I promise you it does not look like that. It was not that long ago when we had a lot of snow here. On the left is myself and my husband and our 2 kids, and my mom lives with us as well. So it was quite interesting earlier, the speaker was talking about, is tourism creating a better quality of life for the community? But actually there's also a question, is tourism creating a better life for the people who are actually doing the tourism, managing those tourism things? Because dealing with tourists on a daily basis is really hard work, and I'm sure many of you know that. We have animals on the farm, and the reason I've included the two other pictures with the people, these are our guests. A lot of guests come here to celebrate stuff, and we offer all sorts of things like a guy in Pitlochry has designed a whole escape room for us using recycled stuff he's found in various junk shops and things. And we also get our local adventure providers to come and do bushcraft and bits and pieces like that. So we provide a service where people can have all sorts of things come to them rather than them go there, or we can organize events. So that's Burminstern. And then if I manage to get the next one. So Rob very kindly said how to run a successful eco business. I think that's what you called it. And success is a funny thing, because over the last 2 years, a successful business in tourism possibly is one that's managed to access grants. I mean, I don't know. We've been closed for a very long time. We take around 12 people. So we've had to basically close because we haven't been allowed to be open for groups. The picture on the left is my husband and I and our architect at the RIAS 2018 awards, where we won for the Building the Climate Change and Building Conservation Award. And it was an amazing night because we were up against some really big names, multi-million-pound projects. And the reason we won was because we'd bothered, apparently, which I thought was quite sad, that, you know, that there's so few people who are bothering to put climate change and the environment at the heart of their business changes that, you know, we want, but not, we're really grateful. But in actual fact, success is what the right-hand photo is for me. So this is my son a couple of years ago. He'll be 4 in a couple of weeks. And he's in one of the fridges in the stadium. And the reason I like this photo is because we clean with really eco-friendly products, which means it doesn't matter that he's in the fridge. He's not covering himself in bleach and in poison. It also means that other people's children can be really safe when they're here. And it's stuff that most people don't even think about, but it's core to our values. It also means that the ecosystem, the water that is being washed from our steading into the local river through our own sanitation system, but it isn't going to kill the local fauna and flora. Okay, so this comes to our next picture, which is back to that question about luxury, what you were talking about before. And this is one of our rooms, which I think people refer to as the most luxurious, mainly because it's got carpet on the floor. And it has a bath, because we made a conscious decision that all of the rooms, except for one, were only going to have showers, so that we weren't expecting our guests to have massive baths all the time and use massive amounts of water. It was about giving them, I think this was something that was said by one of the litter people, is that you make positive change easy. And people do expect sometimes that baths are going to be really luxurious. And so we have one, but it's made out of wood rather than plastic. We also have the option of a shower, so that, you know, the shorter use of hot water is better. Also, that hot water comes from a solar thermal system, which is then topped up with biomass. And as I said before, our water comes from our own well, because we didn't have any possibility of being on the mains. In terms of the rest of the property, all of the paint on the walls is no VOC, which means that there's no, when you're sleeping, you're getting a really good night's sleep because you're not breathing in fumes. Our duvets are made out of wool. Thank you, I'll stop now. And so all of the tiny little things, we've made conscious decisions. We haven't always got it right. I have to say that we haven't always got it right, but we've always thought about it. So final picture. This is what we think luxury is. And this is what we think luxury is kind of considered. It's about making that stamp of people are better than everyone else. But actually, we're just part of it. And that's what we want to be part of, is part of this space, this bigger space. And we're part of that ecosystem. And I wish you all well to see how your bit of your ecosystem can work in harmony with everyone else. Thank you.
Lovely talk. Thank you so much. I think can you put the booking link in the chat so we can book a stay there? Looks lovely. And yeah, I think some really good questions about, you know, how does tourism actually affect the workers, and also I mean, it's quite inspiring to see that you've put climate change at the heart of your business. And I know that a lot of businesses don't put themselves forward for awards in this area because I don't think they can do it. But often just the process of trying to get the award can bring about the change. Thank you. Please keep the questions coming in for Kaija. And let's move on now to, did we do a big applause, Butter? I don't think we did. Let's do it again. Thank you so much for taking time out to give us a talk. Thank you. Over to Colin Milmer.
Hello, thanks, Rob. Hello there, my name's Colin Milmer. Many of you will know me from various meetings previously, but for those who don't, I am the Visitor Services Manager for Swanage Town Council. My role involves managing the information centre in Swanage and the beach huts, beach gardens and the beach and various other things. This will be the first actually Swanage practical on the ground element of tonight's session. So I did struggle with this a little bit to really know what kind of level to pitch it at, but I'll just go to see where it goes. So tourism is worth £74 million to the Swanage economy, and it supports 1,275 jobs. This is just for the town of Swanage. Swanage Town Council is acutely aware how important this sector is to the economic health of the town, and therefore provides support through the information centre, beach huts and the beach. In 2019, the Town Council declared a climate crisis, and in late 2020 published an environmental action plan. The Town Council is currently implementing a number of actions from this plan, with one of the key areas being the funding and support of sustainable Swanage, which many of you will be aware of. There's been much talk about sustainable or ecotourism over the last few years, and to be honest, I've really struggled to really understand what it means for Swanage. I like the term low impact tourism, and the reason I like that is because I can actually relate to it. And I feel if I can relate to that, then I can help my customers relate to it, inspire them to make a difference. To me, low impact tourism means that we can still enjoy tourism, but we need to find ways to ensure that the carbon or ecological footprint is minimised or perhaps enhanced by the actions that we take. For the Town Council, there still remains a concept that we are talking about. And towards the end of the session, you will hear briefly from our tourism chair, who will touch on some ideas for the future. But what have we actually done in the Town Council? There are limits to what we can achieve. At the end of the day, we are just a small town, effectively a parish council. But there is a clear sense that we can develop a whole host of small actions that can help to inspire both local people and visitors. We are proud of the actions that we have undertaken, but we are still very much at the start of this journey. So I'll give you some examples. Some of you will be aware of some of these examples, but as people will know me, there are lots of new things happening. So I will do mostly new things. So one thing we're working on in the last couple of weeks is drinking water. So obviously we want to have access to more drinking water around the town. So what we've done, we've identified, I think we've got 6 taps that are currently in the town, mostly along the seafront, but in most cases, it doesn't say drinking water on them. So we're going to procure some signs and put drinking water on there so people know what they are. We've also made an application for a grant for £2,000 for a town centre water refill station that will go in the town. And we'll find out in a few weeks if we're successful for that. If we're not successful, I still have some money to do something on a little smaller scale. So we are pushing the water refill solutions. We'll also be looking to doing a wider campaign about advertising the shops that also provide that facility. From November 2021, all the events on the council maintained land. And for those of you who know Swanage, most of the seafront is owned by the council. All events will be required to be plastic free from November. We're well on the way to that anyway, but there are some events that have got some challenges, which is why we've given a few more months. One thing we've introduced in the last couple of weeks, as you imagine, we're getting requests for lots of events now. They're all coming through. This year, every single event on town land has to complete an environmental assessment form. It's not a complicated form, but what it does, it requires, there's about 6 categories, and each event has to say what the negative actions of their event is and what the positive actions of their event are. And we're going to see how it goes, but the theory is, if they can identify the negative things, then they can then find ways of decreasing the impact of those negative things and increasing the impact of the positive things. And over time, that will give us some really useful information about how we can improve the ecological and carbon footprints of these events. I'm quite excited about that, actually, and it's going to be a challenge for some events to do that, but it's certainly going to be an interesting process. We are currently undertaking a tender for a bike hire concession, which will include electric bikes. We are hopeful that we will get something in place for this year. And what we are expecting from that is that they'll be using one of our car parks, and we're expecting to see a lot more cycling around the town. We're developing leaflets and a web page around car-free days in Swanage. And the final thing really that we're doing is we are looking at, we've already undertaken an energy use audit and review of potential renewable energy solutions for an information centre, public toilets and our beach huts. So we could have solar panels on our beach huts. That will be the ultimate. We'll find out very soon if that's practical. These provide a flavour of what we're doing. Later on you hear from Chris, our talking chair, who's going to talk about ideas and initiatives which will form part of a wider marketing strategy for the town. That's me. Thank you very much.
Wow, didn't disappoint there, Colvin. Awesome. Great to hear how so much stuff is going on. And,
There's always lots of stuff.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I've got down here drinking water, a refill station in the town centre. If you don't get enough money for that, you know, that Planet Purbeck can help you get that. We'll crowdsource, we'll work our membership. I think that's an excellent idea. Putting climate change on the event application forms, electric bike hire, car-free days, solar panels. I salute you. Brilliant. Thank you, Colvin and the council. It's great to hear. And the other thing, this is why we want to give you this platform, is because people don't know about all of the great stuff that the council does. And we want to help you get these positive messages out. So yeah, keep putting the questions in the chat. This just reminded me, Lucinda from Purbeck Energy Group, are you here just to do a very short pitch about the event tomorrow and Solar Streets? Lucinda. Lucinda, are you here? I think I saw her earlier.
She is here. Shall I jump in?
You jump in, yeah.
Yeah, so for those of you interested, tomorrow...
Kelvin, I've just managed to unmute myself. Sorry, that took a very long time.
Go for it. You've got a minute, Lucinda.
Yes, tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock, we're launching a project in Swanage and surrounding areas called Solar Streets. The idea is to work with a solar panel provider to have discounted solar panels. So it's a very simple concept, but the idea is to get a lot of it going in this side of Purbeck. If you'd like to come, what you need to do is, I'll put this in the chat in a minute, but there's a website which is solarstreets.co.uk/Swanage, and you can look at information there and you can sign up for tomorrow if you'd like to come.
We'll be there. Great news. Okay, next person, please, is going to be Colin Morgan from Swanage Railway. Colin, the floor is yours.
Great. Thanks very much. Like many people in this meeting, I'm one of those people who've travelled quite a lot around Europe, a little bit in Asia as well. I started doing that in the 70s when I was trying to get fit again and getting into serious walking. And I used to come down to Dorset to use the coastal path to get fit for serious walking in the mountains and the Alps and so on. In fact, it's easier walking in the Alps than on the coastal path, I assure you. But so I've been to a lot of rural places. I've been to a lot of cities. I've seen transport dealt with in many different ways, and I've seen some exciting ways of doing things. I've been to car-free towns, car-free villages, and almost car-free city centres. So there are things that can be done that haven't yet been properly done in this country, in my view. But there are reasons to think that we've got the makings of something similar for Purbeck if we keep moving and keep pushing in the right doors. First of all, I think we need to remind ourselves of why road-based transport for people is not a good idea. There's so many costs involved. The first thing is that cars are not available to everybody. There are a number of people who can't drive for various reasons. There's a number of people who can't afford it. There are a number of people who don't want to drive. And it's at least 25% of the population don't have access to a car. And quite a significant number of those where there's one car in a household, it's hogged by one person to get to work and so on. An interesting piece of data which came out of the announcement on better bus services yesterday is that they have a figure nationally that 77% of the people who are looking for jobs are people who do not have access that's available for them to get to and from work. So it's a great source of inequality. The other things, we talk a great deal about carbon dioxide being produced by cars, but that's only one of the pollutants they produce. There's gases which affect people's and animals' abilities to breathe. There are particles which affect people's ability to breathe. There's the huge number of people killed and maimed in road accidents. The interesting figure from Public Health England is that Purbeck, in the latest figures available, which was 2018 and 19, Purbeck had the highest casualty rate in England. And some people say that's a statistical quirk, but it's a pretty serious figure. And the other major item is the amount of space taken up by private transport to go everywhere, when most of the cars are used for only a small amount of the time each day, sometimes not at all. And they're particularly bad for tourism. The amount of space they need to park when they get to us is probably out of all proportion to the economic value that they bring. So there are lots of reasons for wanting to change, but so many people are so tied to their cars, we're not going to get change unless we offer them alternatives. We've got to attract them out of their cars at least as much as trying to control the use. And there are a number of things that have been started in Purbeck and which could easily take a big march forward. I'm just summarising 4 of the key ones. First of all, I'll talk about Swanage Railway that I have some involvement with. That exists as a result of the community opposition to the closure of the rail service back in the 1970s. First of all, the key thing was after the railway service was shut by British Rail, Dorset Council then proposed to use the track bed through Corfe Castle for a bypass. It couldn't have been a great bypass they were planning, but they were planning that. And a very strong reaction against making it impossible to reopen the railway caused Dorset Council to drop that. And within the following years, first of all, a group of people did include railway enthusiasts, but it also included people who wanted to see the railway open for transport. They started rebuilding the railway from Swanage, and with enormous success. We're almost there. We would have been there last year if it hadn't been for the pandemic. And it's very much a community-based operation. There's the plans to get some decent cycling walking routes going from Corfe Castle to Purbeck Park and then on to Studland, which means one of the most dangerous sections of the National Cycle Network could be replaced for cyclists between Corfe and Studland by a totally off-road route. And there's the Cordite Way, which Beryl Ezard, Councillor Beryl Ezard, has been pushing for decades, which is almost ready for development, from Sandford in the direction of Poole, which would be a big thing. There's the Community Rail Partnership, which is a national activity designed to encourage use of trains and working very successfully.
Colin, I'm just going to have to ask you to round up. Sorry, but it's been really interesting.
Okay. We're hoping that the railway will get some support from Recover Your Railway Fund, but I must make a reference to Bus Back Better yesterday, which was published from Downing Street, an 84-page document, which I recommend anybody who's interested in transport in rural areas as well as urban areas to read. It is really saying buses must be a large proportion of the transport system, with properly integrated, with coordinated with trains and coordinated with providing safe walking and cycling routes to places where they can get on the buses and the trains. Thank you.
Thank you. I never thought I'd ask everyone to give applause with someone finishing with Boris Johnson, but it was a superb speech. Thank you very much. The stats on road accidents I was unaware of, and they are incredibly motivating to try and get us to look at alternatives. I'm really excited to hear more about the new cycle off-road routes that you talk about, and Planet Purbeck is here to campaign for those and help you fund for those.
Yeah, can I just say, I'm Beryl Ezard. I was mentioned there, and I
very quickly, Beryl. Sorry, because we're a bit behind.
The Cordite Way is actually along Poole Harbour, at the back of Holton Heath towards Holton Lee, and it's the old little railway that they took the Cordite down to Rockley Jetty, and I'm appealing because they refused it after my application been into Dorset Council for 10 years. So I've actually appealed to the inspectorate to get that reversed. So I'm hoping that's going to happen. So anyway, that's just to fill that one in, and I'm all behind Colin and all this, the using public transport. I'm lobbying very hard for more buses. They've cut the buses drastically. We need more and appropriate ones.
Thank you, Beryl, for your tireless work as always. Josie Parish, Joe's Cafe on Studland Beach. Please stick to 5 minutes because we are running behind as always because we've had so many good speakers.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm going to put my Joe's Caf hat on. So yeah, thank you Planet Purbeck for hosting this and giving me the opportunity to speak. I was really encouraged by the presentation by Jeremy, and it looks like we're going to really be unpicking what we have and find, discuss it and actually come up with some solutions. So that's absolutely awesome. And Heidi, your presentation on tackling waste is really impressive, and I hope we can find solutions. And so for us at Studland, our tiny little Joe's Caf, if you don't know us, we're on South Beach, Studland, just around the corner from Dan, who spoke earlier from Middle Beach. And we can only thank the National Trust hugely for taking that massive risk of removing the bins from Studland Beach. We would, like Swanage, seriously, we would never have thought it would have worked. I mean, I've been on the beach since I was born, which is a long time, I can tell you. And we used to have, the more bins we had, the more litter we had. So some of the things that we've been doing, I took on the business in 2002, and I've been running it as a very small family business, not following any of the normal rules, just wanted to do what I thought was best, always under the thought that I'm going to make food that only, that I would allow my kids to eat, so quality food. And we immediately got away with the throwaway cups, and people had mugs. So I'm essentially a takeaway business who does not believe in takeaway. So I've invented the word semi takeaway. So over the years, I've trained my customers And they know that they get their mug and they can take it off down the beach, or their plate, and their knives and forks, even some ketchup if they want to, not in COVID times, and then they bring it back, and it works really well. And then the other thing we do, which is a similar idea, is borrow and return. So we've got beach goods, which I leave out even when we're closed, apart from in COVID times. But we've had, some kids know us as the Digger Beach. There's buckets and spades, deck chairs, windbreaks, and I've trained the customers. They know they can pick them up, take them off down the beach. They don't have to buy anything from me in order to borrow them. That's not the point of it. And they're happy to use them, and then they bring them back. So borrow and return. It's amazing how you can change the mindset. And what I've noticed, I've had some people from London that have come up to me and said, "You're mad," at the start of their holiday. What are you doing? And by the end of the week, they're calm. They're feeling that they're being trusted. Their kids are playing with other kids nearby. They've made friends with other people. They've come back and they've met these same people year on after year. So these are just you're changing the whole feeling and ambiance. And I've said previously in the planning for this that I'm very good at social media, in that I'm not very good at marketing, but what I do say to people is that when they say that they liked it and we didn't know about it, I just say, well, just tell your friends, because we only want nice people here, so we only want people that you like here. So I can see the bell going, and it's a tight, and I could go on forever. So yeah, thank you. Stronger together.
Yeah, well said. I feel like the energy's building tonight. The questions are coming in now. The ideas are fizzing around. It feels like we're going to have real change now. Excellent. And I love how your business is just embodying everything that we need to do to reduce consumption, borrow and return, and all of your reusable stuff. I think you're an exemplar example, Josie. And do go and visit Josie on Stutland Beach and go and enjoy some of her tasty food and drink. Okay, we've only got time for one question because I've let the speakers overrun because I just couldn't bring myself to cut them off because they were speaking so well. The question I liked the most was the one from Heidi, actually, a question for Colvin, quite a big one. Heidi?
So I was interested to know about the barriers that you faced, Colvin. What were the biggest barriers or kind of challenges you had to overcome to introduce the changes that you're planning to make this year?
To be honest, truthfully, I haven't really had any. I know that sounds silly, really, but other than perhaps time, I think the council have been fantastic, absolutely supportive. They pushed me as much as I pushed them, and you'll hear from a couple of councillors later on. Time is a real issue. Capacity is a real issue, which is why we set up Sustainable Swanage. We have lots of people through Sustainable Swanage which are supporting us to achieve more. There is a big barrier from other people, negativity from residents. That can be a challenge. And I would ask from people like yourselves, Planet Purbeck, to try and support us on social media and things like that, because we do get a lot of negativity from people, usually because of they don't necessarily understand what we're trying to achieve, and fear of change as well. Those are the kind of issues, I think. But generally, not many barriers. Can we just get on and do it? Thank you.
It's a really good point. Great question, great answer, Colvin. I think, as we know from social media, often that the considered smart people are not on there making lots of noise, but the problem is that the noisy lot that aren't very solution focused are the ones that get a lot of attention. So we need to, as a community, counter that with our support. Thank you, Colvin. Right, moving on to land use and tourism. We've got three more excellent speakers. We've got Peter Robertson, Tom Clark and Alistair Tuckey. You can go in whichever order you like. I think we've got Alistair last. So Tom or Peter, you choose who wants to go first.
So I'm going first. I've nominated myself. I've got 2 minutes, which is very quick. Thanks. If I can get the slideshow. Hang on a minute. Oh, it's going to take me 2 minutes to get the slideshow up. Okay. How it started. Come to Dorset, they said. From your slums in London, they said. And so my parents in 1982 brought me down. We stayed in a cottage on West Street in Corfe, and we saw foxes at dawn on Corfe Common. We saw seabirds soaring over the cliffs of Durlston, and I walked round Ballard Down and I saw Old Harry, and it changed my life. I valued nature. I wanted to save it. I wanted to save the planet, and hence I'm now working for the National Trust after a career of about 20 years because of that visit to Purbeck. How's that call to come to Dorset going at the moment? You know, not great. Lots of people have heard it, but we need to recognise that this is a standard thing. Back in 1870s, the Earl of Eldon in Encombe was closed access to the Encombe estate due to the atrocious conduct of the trippers. That's before the railway. When the first rambling guide to the Isle of Purbeck was created at about the same time, a passionate plea from the author that the urbanites should be allowed to come and range in the countryside from which they're, which after 100 years of industrial revolution, they've lost touch with. And that's where the National Trust was formed. This quote from Octavia Hill, the need for quiet, oh, sorry, don't want to go past Octavia, the need for quiet, the need for air, the need for exercise, and I believe the sight of the sky and of things growing seems human needs, common to all. That's 126 years old, and doesn't that ring true in the time of COVID? So Purbeck changes lives. And increasingly of a broader demographic than the Keiths and the Candace Maries of the 1970s and 80s that my parents were. And it's worth recognising, of course, that while still some visitors cause harm, we also know that no one will protect what they don't care about, and no one will care about what they have never experienced. So we've got an amazing opportunity here to use Purbeck to change the lives of those who choose to visit us, just like it did for me, there stood near Old Harry. For the benefit of nature, and for the benefit of people, local and visitors. That's from a local person, that quote. So let's design a landscape and an infrastructure that better meets the needs of the 21st century visitor, as well, and in that interface with nature and landscape. So let's champion the cause of the visitor like I was, and let's inspire the visitor to champion our cause in return. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. I can't wipe the smile off my face. That was a brilliant speech. I don't know whether to cheer or cry. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Yeah, powerful stuff. It's only a couple of minutes, but it was potent. Okay, I really feel like the energy's building now. Let's move on to Peter, please.
Excellent. Thanks, Rob. And thanks to Tom. Great introduction. So my name's Peter Robertson. I work for the RSPB, managing our nature reserves in Dorset. This evening, though, I'm going to talk to you kind of from the perspective of the wider partnership that manages the Purbeck Heaths National Nature Reserve, and a particular part of that project, that partnership, that's managing a project called the Purbeck Heaths Grazing Unit, which I'll kind of come on to just at the end. So our belief, our proposition is that the Purbeck Heaths are the beating heart of Purbeck. They're the centrepiece of what is the most nature-rich landscape in the UK, a stunning, important, precious place. I don't think we should lose sight of exactly how important the place we live in is for nature. But as with any beating heart, it's both vital for the kind of wider body, but also vulnerable, also kind of can be damaged, it is vulnerable. So it's really important that we recognise how much it needs to be respected and protected, and that's kind of that twin track of love, respect and protect, that this place that we think is at the heart of Purbeck is important. just talk very briefly about the Purbeck Heaths National Nature Reserve. It's not just about heathland, it's about grasslands, woodlands, scrubs, saltmarsh, sand dunes and the beaches. When I say it's the kind of the beating heart of Purbeck, sort of physically as well as metaphorically, it sits right in the middle of Purbeck. The map shows the extent of the Purbeck Heaths NNR, so everything from Brownsea Island round through Studland, through Burminstern Forest, and back out to the end of the Arn Peninsula. That's kind of really core bit in the middle of Purbeck. Part of what we're doing at the moment across this landscape is, and I'll use the word with kind of with quote marks around it, putting in place a rewilding project at one end of Purbeck. So we're introducing free roaming animals, or we're in the process of putting in place the infrastructure that allow us to have free roaming animals across at least half of the National Nature Reserve. That's important because they are what creates and maintains the habitat, the landscape that supports the teeming, buzzing wildlife for which the Purbeck Heaths are important. But I'm also seeing them not just as a tool in the landscape, as part of the landscape, as part of what we think people will want to come and see and experience. In particular, pigs are kind of well known as landscape and habitat engineers. We already have pigs behind electric fences at Arn, but we'll be having pigs roaming more widely. But what we want, the point we want to get to is a point where people, nature and grazing animals are able to more than just coexist in this landscape. We want them to thrive together in a wilder landscape, and I kind of deliberately place people in the middle of that. We think that's kind of an essential part of the future of this landscape. And species like nightjar, I think there was an article in the Advertiser this week talking about the potential negative impacts of visitors on some of our more threatened species like nightjar. But it's not about numbers, it's all about people. It's not about numbers of visitors, it's all about behaviour and all the things that we heard earlier about making it easier for people to do the right thing, be in the right place is important. We want as many people as possible to hear the spine-tingly, inspiring call at night of a nightjar. It's an experience that once heard is never forgotten. We want people to have that experience, but we want them to experience in a way that is good for them and good for the nightjars. So what are we doing collectively? So we're working together kind of in a partnership of both land managers and other organisations, particularly kind of tourist-based organisations, to seek to co-create a sustainable tourism plan for the Purbeck Heaths National Nature Reserve. So the reason that Tom and I are along this evening is to kind of invite your input to that, really, that we have funding to put something together between ourselves. We're co-creating a sustainable tourism plan, and we'd love you to get involved. We want to hear your ideas, what you think should be included, what the most important elements to include in that plan are. We've already started some of those conversations, but this evening seemed like too good an opportunity to miss, to broaden out that conversation and invite anyone who's interested to get involved. And that's me. Thank you.
Awesome, thanks, Peter. I'm excited. I can't wait to take my son to see the pigs and the nightjars. Tom, do you want anything to add? Peter was very efficient, so he's got about a minute left. Do you want to add anything?
I kept it to 2 minutes on purpose. Only that exactly.
I'd kind of use up whatever Tom left.
No, it is a great opportunity. It's a year's project on the Purbeck Heaths to define what the sustainable tourism plan will be for the area. So this is a real life chance to actually shape that document that will inform that landscape for the next 10, 15, 20 years.
Don't let this opportunity pass us by. Get involved, contact Peter, and let's contribute to our future. Super. Thank you for the invitation, Peter and Tom. Okay, moving on to Ali.
Right, I'm just going to share my screen.
Where are you from, Ali?
So I'm Ali Tucky. I had the privilege of being a ranger at Durlston for about 20 years now, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about really why nature needs tourism, why nature needs people. And I guess it all starts with this picture, which, as you might guess, isn't in Purbeck. This was mum and dad were running a children's home up in London, near Brixton. And this was where I was taken at the age of about 5 or 6 as an eco-tourist. This is Thaden Boys, Epping Forest, up near London. Hopefully you can all see that, yeah. And I had a great, amazing day just walking through there as a 5 or 6 year old under these amazing cathedral-like hornbeam trees, and just being slack-jawed with wonder. So it's an amazing, amazing experience. And that was where I think some of my love of wildlife started, really, with that one incredible day. So I think something the pandemic's brought home to all of us more than ever, to me included, is that nature just makes us happy. It's just good for us. It makes us smile. It brings us joy. It makes the world a nicer place. And we need it in our lives. Equally, though, nature needs us. And I think it's easy to forget that sometimes. It's not just about joy. It's not just about happiness. It's about inspiration as well. And I think if ever I'm feeling a bit jaded and a bit worn down with it all, taking other people out and sharing that with them is just so joyful for me. I think one of my best experiences actually in my years here has been taking a little girl out on a school group and watching her discover that there was more than one kind of grass. And before my eyes, I could see her horizons expanding. I could see her eyes being open to something completely new. And that's part of what nature has the power to do. So here's Thaden Boys, if you don't know it, up here near London, little square there. Each of these squares is about 10 kilometres on a side. And the BSBI, a few years ago, divided the whole country up into these squares. And they got volunteers to go out. They're about to do it again, actually, if anyone fancies counting some plants and recording how many different of our wild plants grew in each square. And what they found was the square in the country that has more species than any other in the whole of Britain out of those thousands of squares is this one here. So we live in Britain's rainforest. This is a truly exceptional part of the country in terms of our countryside. And I think we have a responsibility to care for it and care for that nature and that landscape. But we also have a responsibility to share it, because as other speakers have touched on, really, you don't love what you can't see. We want to get people into the countryside, share that with them, because that's how we get them caring about our countryside, about our planet. And our countryside needs people in it. It's always had people in it. So for 3,000, 4,000 years or more, there's been no wilderness in this country. We've been cutting meadows, we've been grazing land, we've been building walls, we've been coppicing our woodlands. And it's not despite that we have all this wildlife, it's because of it. So it works both ways. Nature's kind to us, and we work for nature as well. The two absolutely fit together. So whether people are coming here to visit or to volunteer or as tourists, that's absolutely what nature needs. If I was a ranger in Eastern Europe or the forests of Canada, the Australian outback, you could make an argument to say perhaps the best thing for nature is leave it alone, let it get on with it. In this country, though, the absolute opposite's true. You can't separate people and nature out. So these amazing landscapes, this incredible wildlife we have is here because of people. And it's not just about that inspiration. It's not just about that learning and that pleasure it brings us, but it's the glue that sticks us together as a country, and God knows we need that at the moment. It's what's embedded in our culture, it's in our stories, it's in our poems. Even if you don't know what a magpie looks like, you've probably heard one for sorrow, two for joy. It's there in all of us. So we need people to be loving these special places, and there's really nowhere more special than Purbeck. Thanks to the amazing Jane Colhoun, who said I could use this lovely photo of Swanage Beach. Embroidery, I should say. Every stitch there is hand stitched by Jane. But these are the people who are really important too. I need to bring people to Dilston. We need to do that, to do that inspiration, but also to help pay for the site and run the site. But we also need those people who are coming to Swanage, perhaps don't think of themselves as having an interest in nature, who perhaps just want to visit the beach, visit the town, but never get into our green spaces. What can we do for them? And other speakers have touched on this, give them that amazing wraparound experience that every part of their holiday can have a connection to our planet. Every part of their holiday, what they eat, what they drink, how they travel around. We can give them that great experience that's going to inspire them, and hopefully inspire them to take those messages away and do more where they live. So that brings me to an end, really. I'd just like to say thank you to nature for all it's done for me. I'd like to say thank you to the bees for pollinating the flowers, like it says here. And I'd like to say thank you to all of you for listening tonight. So that's me done. Thanks, Rob.
Great presentation. These are really, truly great presentations. So thank you so much, all the presenters, for these presentations, so impassioned. I've learned so much. We live in Britain's rainforest. What an amazing stat. And what was the other bit? How we can coexist and share nature. A really positive message. Thanks, Ali. Brilliant. So we don't have any time for questions because I've given all the speakers a little bit of extra time. So we're going to move on straight to Councillor Chris Toms from the Tourism Committee, and then followed by that, our wonderful Mayor, Mike Bonfields.
Thank you, Rob. People don't know me, I'm Chris Toms. I'm a Swanage councillor and chairman of the Tourism Committee. Now, we know that Booking.com research indicates 71% of their customers want a sustainable option, and 86% will go for green actions while on holiday. Now, there's clearly a demand for low impact tourism or ecotourism. And if nothing else, from a purely economic perspective, we should realign our local economy in this direction. Over the last few weeks, the Tourism Council's marketing group has undertaken a series of interviews with different tourism businesses across the area. These interviews will form the basis of a new marketing strategy, which will provide us with the opportunity to develop an environmental brand that appeals and inspires to old and new visitors alike. Now, this is an ongoing piece of work, and we appreciate it, hope it'll be ready for 2022. This work, along with discussions today, will form the development of a sustainable tourism vision, which will be discussed further at our next Tourism Committee meeting on the 23rd of March. The discussion, I'll put that away. The discussion today has been fantastic. It's been mind-blowing and really eye-opening. I'll go back to the first speaker, Jeremy, that spoke about communities at the centre of tourism. Being a business owner as well, Swanage in the Purbeck area is so lucky to have so many shops, businesses, campsites owned by local people. So tourism really does play a part in local people's lives. It helps people, it gives people jobs, puts food on the plate, and we're in a situation now where we can really move the town's vision to an eco-friendly place. Alistair spoke about nature and everything like that. We live with nature 365 degrees around us. I can't say anything more than this. It's been a real pleasure to listen in tonight. I know there's a lot of councillors here that's listening as well. Thank you to all the speakers. We look forward to working with you all to create a sustainable vision for the town and improve the town's tourism in future years. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, everyone.
Chris, I mean, that's a big round of applause. Chris, I can hear the genuineness in your voice, and it, you know, us at Planet Purbeck, we put a lot of effort into this. We're all volunteers, and it's really pleasing to hear that it's well received from yourself, and that your mind has been blown, and it's been really eye-opening. And it's great to hear you're creating an environmental brand and a sustainable tourism vision. I think speaking from Planet Purbeck, we just want to know, how can we help you? How can we work together to create the future we want for our children and our grandchildren? So do let us know. I don't know if you can come back with that now. But
like I said, the branding and things like that, we are very much in the early doors of those discussions and those interviews. I'm sure with Colin and his team and fellow councillors, then hopefully we can, you know, work with Alistair at Dalston, the NSP, National Trust, to, you know, brand Swanage, brand Purbeck as a environmentally eco-friendly place to come. So look, we look forward to working with you guys. I'm sure we'll be involved as well.
Great, that's so pleasing to hear. Can't wait to work with you in the future. And thanks so much for coming along and speaking and engaging with us. Over to you, Mike, to take us away. And please do hang on. We've only got about 5 minutes left, so do hang on in there.
It ain't going to be that long, don't worry.
I know, but I've got other stuff. But yeah,
it's
5 minutes.
Yeah. Thanks very much. I had no idea what I was going to say until I start. I've made a few notes tonight, and it was very hard because following Calvin and Chris, it has not been easy. Some of the notes I've made, I've got to start by thanking some of you here tonight that have worked so hard with the council over the last 16 months to produce our policy and action plan. And it was actually, you know, people say it's a council action plan. It's not. It is a town action plan. It's been very interesting tonight hearing from so many passionate individuals that are so concerned about our environment, especially tourism, which I suppose is so important to all of us, because we all love the area we live in and we want them to come and enjoy it, but also respect it. We welcome hundreds of thousands of visitors to the area each year, and we need to work with them to help protect not only the local area, but the environment as a whole. I thank you all for your input. We must remember, I suppose, that it's not only the big things that make a change. We can all do the little things, because if we all do the little things, that becomes a big thing in change. It was enlightening to hear about so many different ideas tonight. The removing of the bins on Studland Beach. It's about probably 6 years ago now that Swanage Town Council and the then Dorset Waste Partnership removed about 8 bins around Swanage in certain areas because they were problematic. And as I can't remember who said it, exactly the same happened. The litter just disappeared. And we have in Swanage, and it's probably the same as everywhere, a lot of it is caused by residents. And for example, Ocean Bay, which a lot of you will know at the end of the shore, the bins there were always full on a Friday and a Saturday, but they were full with black bin bags. We removed the bin, there's no rubbish there. The black bin bags and that were mostly from people leaving their beach huts. They are now taking it somewhere else because it's not there. So I quite agree with what they said the National Trust have done. Sometimes removing bins can remove litter, but you also have to remember that there is always going to be street litter, whether it's the children walking along with some sweets. So we need the bins. I'd like to mention a few of the punchlines that we've mentioned tonight. And this is in no particular order. And I think one that really hit me was remembering the quality of life for residents, because tourism affects the residents of Purbeck as much as it does the visitors. Build back better, future of tourism. And I thought, what a fantastic punchline. Why should they care? I thought that was a very thought-provoking thought. And I think it's almost one that there could be a lot of discussion on. The really big one, and it should have been on the end with more emphasis on it, working with others. Because I think that is the end, or the great bit of this group, whether it's, you know, Litter Free Purbeck, all of us work as a group. Unfortunately, I don't join you very often because Rob picks the wrong nights, but we are all behind you. Low impact tourism. I thought that was very good, and I've heard it a number of times because obviously it come from Calvin. I love the bit training customers. I think that brought quite a smile to my face. I think if everybody could do that, what a place we have. And I'm sure we get a name around the country. Let's challenge the cause of a visitor. I think is another thought-provoking line that could cause quite a discussion of how we achieve it. And finally, I think that bit about informing visitors at the earliest our environmental issues that we face locally. I think that was very, very well put. And I think it's reasonably something that can be achieved, not easy, but probably easier than a lot of them. And I'd like to see that taken forward. Finally, I'm pleased to say that the Town Council are fully committed to doing what we can. And I think those that obviously know us and have worked with us, we are doing as much as we can. And I finish with, we are all greater when we work together, because that's what it's all about. So thank you very much.
Awesome, Mike. Do you want to come and run Planet Purbeck, Mike? I don't think you're going to put it better myself.
Thanks for telling me what to say, Rob. Hey.
Well said. Well said, Mike. Brilliant summing up. Let's give a big wave to Mike. That was awesome. I think we're very lucky to have you, Mike, and Chris and Colvin. You were one of the first councils to declare climate emergency. And just on a personal
crisis, please.
Climate crisis,
not emergency.
Crisis. And as a mayor, you are very visible, very approachable, and you know we see you everywhere. And I commend you for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And it's great to hear that you enjoyed so many of the punchlines, as you call them. Excellent. Well, I'm really psyched and pumped up and inspired. So thank you all for coming tonight. I want to thank the brilliant Planet Purbeck team for all the work they put in for tonight, all the planning and preparation, particularly the media team for getting the message out here and telling so many people. Also, thank everyone who's here tonight to create the energy that we've got tonight. And also all the wonderful words we've had from people beyond Purbeck. I've just seen a constant messages in the chat from people outside Purbeck saying what an inspiration this has been tonight, and to see how we are all collaborating here to work together. So awesome. Thank you. Right, next we are moving on to, just to let you know, a lot of the speakers will be hanging around in the pub later, so do stick around for that if you've still got burning questions. We're now going to move on to the Planet Purbeck coordinators. These are the people that run teams. They've all got 30 seconds each to quickly tell you what's going on at Planet Purbeck, because we've got a lot going on. So let's go for Doug first, 30 seconds, festival.
We are all systems go for festival on 20th to the 26th of September this year. It's going to be mixed events of various activities all around the Purbeck area, coordinated by Planet Purbeck. And we're aiming to have a successful annual fun community event to promote sustainable living and true ecotourism. So anybody who wants to give us a hand, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doug. Awesome. 30 seconds as well. Media, please.
Hello, everyone. So the media team's here not just to promote Planet Purbeck itself, but all of the good work done by organisations, individuals and businesses in the area. So if you're making a positive difference, go to our website, hit the contact us page and let us know. Also, if you've got some time on your hands, why not join the team? Every individual brings skills, experience and their own network and own ideas, and we really appreciate it. We really are stronger together.
Awesome, Dean. Stronger together. Let's keep going. Campaigns team, please.
Yeah, we've campaigned on the DCC Climate Emergency Strategy and Action Plan, the Dorset Local Plan. We've helped people with guidance there. We're currently campaigning to reduce the use of peat and pesticides, and we're shortly campaigning on the CEE bill, which is coming up for its second reading in Parliament. We will be taking part in lots of local campaigns. Come and join us.
Awesome. Let's keep going. Fundraising, Tom Clark.
Yeah, this is where the real fun, we put the fun in fundraising. I nearly got that out properly. We need to get some money to make some change, don't we? Come and help us. With first meetings on Friday morning. Drop us a line, check out the contact details on the Planet Purbeck website. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. And Alexia, land use, please.
So come and join nature enthusiasts, ecologists, conservationists, farmers, land managers. We've all got a common aim of supporting positive land use change to bring about carbon capture and biodiversity restoration so that Purbeck has an even greater abundance of nature for everyone to enjoy. So what are we up to? The big scheme we're getting off the ground at the moment is a large-scale hedgerow and linear woodland planting project south of North Hill. We'll need plenty of help with this, especially for those who want to get their hands dirty next winter. And in addition, through this year, we're going to be hosting events such as talks on regenerative farming, opportunities arising from the agricultural bill, and of course, showcasing inspirational environmental projects at our festival. So if you want to help, or if you know someone who'd like help in bringing more nature to your land, no matter how big or how small, we have specialists and volunteers here to make it happen. So let's link together and make a difference.
Woo! Let's do it. Excellent. Lovely to hear. I just want to squeeze in Kaz Dennett very quickly. She's doing People's Assemblies. I've just spotted her on my screen. She's putting stuff in the chat. Kaz, just quickly tell us about People's Assemblies.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Yeah, so we've ran quite a few of them now, probably about 9 in the last 3 or 4 months on the Climate and Ecological Emergency Strategy public consultation and recently on the Dorset Local Plan. They really work. It's a fantastic way, especially during COVID times, to bring people together across Dorset or across a local community. People can have their say, be listened to. There's input and discussion and breakout rooms and solutions. And yeah, I think we did one for Swanage Area Forum last Friday night. It was well attended and everyone really got to have their say. And yeah, they're really enjoyable, actually. I'm addicted to People's Assemblies. Please stop me. But yeah, so actually, if anybody is interested in running a People's Assembly for their local community, there is training available locally, both in terms of the actual People's Assemblies format and how to run it technically as well. Please do get in touch with us. I'll put my email address in there in the chat in a minute. But yeah, big up the People's Assemblies and the community assemblies. Thanks, Rob. Thanks for the plug.
Yeah, no worries at all. It really is at the cutting edge of democracy, and people do love them. It's amazing to see people get so much out of talking about community matters. They are a lot of fun. Do go along to them. Thank you, Kaz. So what next? We've had a lot of passion, a lot of good ideas tonight. I think it's so important. We've also had people from the council as well invite us to contribute and help them create a vision and a practical plan. So we now need to go and do it, don't we, folks? So there will be, we need to create a practical action plan for tourism in Purbeck. We all need to work together. And I will be sending out an email to everyone that's attended here tonight to arrange a meeting so we can create a one-pager vision and practical action plan for tourism to give to Mike and Chris and Colvin that kind of collects all of these ideas. And And we look forward to working with everyone here tonight together. And we're going to finish with our motto at Planet Purbeck, which is very similar to the motto that Mike finished it with, which is stronger together. And what I'd like to invite you all to do is unmute. And then it's going to be a countdown from 3, and then we're all going to roar stronger together and put our hand in the air. So 3, 2, 1, stronger together! Woo! Thank you so much. Nice. Awesome. Great. I love Purbeck. So, yeah, there's going to be a 2 or 3 minute break while people grab a drink and go to the toilet if they need to. Then we're going to carry on into the pub, and do stay on for that if you can. Mike, did you want to say something else? You almost seem poised to.
I don't know, do I?
Yeah, you seem like you were.
Really, yeah, I think I'd like to thank all of you. It has been an enjoyable evening, and sometimes if you can arrange them when I'm not at other meetings, I will try and join you more often, I can assure you. I will not be the Mayor of Swanage. I've only got 1 more meeting to go, so hopefully I'll have more free time next year, so you might have to put up with me more. But thank you everybody for what you're doing. It is really appreciated. Thank you.
Excellent. Come and join us at Planet Purbeck, Mike. It'd be more than welcome. Thank you all. See you soon.
Yeah. Cheers.